Okay, my name is Ruth Hayes, and Robin's stories are all true. I don't know if they ever knew, but Dick and Andy used to smoke cigarettes in the doghouse. And Dad Zarnicki built the house that it had a divider in it that the dogs had to climb over. And those two boys would climb over that and smoke their cigarettes. And Dick and Andy once were talking about it and said they're lucky to be alive. And they really did do all those stupid things. And they did bang the bullets. And it did go off. My husband always told that story. I've known Andy, ages. We all grew up together. He was a brother to my husband. They weren't blood brothers. They lived around the corner from each other. But they grew up together. And Mom and Dad Zarnicki and Mr. and Mrs. Weatherby and everybody and Drum Corps. And it was wonderful to have such a good community togetherness, because that's what it was like. You weren't afraid to go out and play in that ball field, climb those stupid trees that were cut down and almost kill yourself. And it was just wonderful. Andy used to come over for chicken dinners before he was married. It was mashed potatoes, gravy, corn, and fried chicken. And it was every week like that. And we enjoyed each other. We were the gruesome threesome for years. And then our best buddy Sharon come along, and we have called each other the buddies all these years. And when we sent mail to one another, it was to the buddies. And when we lived in Vegas, we used to take trips with our tape recorder and tape record them. Here we go, we're going on a trip down the strip, and to my right is this building, to the left is another building, and that's what we would send back and forth. We would have sit around the kitchen table, and the kids would talk. My oldest, Penny, has that beautiful wedding picture. When they got married, she was their flower girl, and she was, 3? About 3 years old. And the man you saw with Andy in the car, standing up with hair on his head, the dark hair, that was my Dick. And we were all together. And I'll tell you, Andy is with Dick now and the rest of his loving family. And they're having root beer floats. And they're sitting by their campfire. And as he called my husband Pokeyman, because he would sit there and poke the fire and keep it stoked and going. So I thank Andy. I thank Andy for the privilege of knowing him, the privilege of him letting us join in his family life, and to have our children grow up together, which they did. And you're all very handsome. And this is my family here. We just came up today from Massachusetts down in Springfield. Crazy traffic. We made it for the last hour. But I love you, Sharon. And Andy was top-notch guy. Fantastic.
Written by Al Weatherby, which would be Sharon's dad, Andy's father-in-law. The poem is The Bubble. It left its place of birth egg-shaped, wobbly, and trembling in the summer's breeze, then adjusted into its final shape of a perfect round sphere. In its first seconds, it drifted slowly downward towards the grass below, and then was gently lifted up, swaying back and forth with the shifting breeze until it reached the tops of the surrounding trees. It hovered there between heaven and earth for a precious moment as it caught the last rays of the setting sun. Then, like magic, it radiated a rainbow of shimmering colors in a breathtaking display that comes only from the hand of God, then suddenly disappeared. It was a beautiful, precious moment that shall live in our memories forever. I close my eyes and I can still see that perfect bubble. Some things in life of great beauty are with us for but a short time and then must pass away. Be it a rose at the instant of bloom, a soft summer sunset, a beautiful bubble, or a loved one close to our heart. Let it be its moment of beauty that remains.
It's kind of tough to follow all that up, I tell you what. A lot of great stories and sides of Andy that I, as someone who knew him only for a few years, did not experience, and I kind of wish I had. What I value about Andy in my life was his advice and his wisdom, which is something that you all probably can say. You meet a lot of people who have a lot to say, and it's not always worth hearing. And you meet a lot of people who have a lot to say, but they don't say it for whatever reason. And my experience with Andy was that he had a lot to say, but he would say it. And not just in, like, I have an opinion, but he would say to me and to others, many others, I was not unique in this at all, I see something about you, and this is what I think, all right? Or it would be that personal. He was engaged. And that really was my sense of him just as a whole. I and probably 85 other guys in my generation called him our other dad, right? He was not coasting. He was at a point in life where you see a lot of guys just coast, right? They're going to just coast. They're winding up their career and they're going on to something else. Maybe they're going to play golf. Maybe they're going to fish. Andy wasn't coasting. Andy was shifting. And I really respect and honor that about him, and I'm going to miss him.
I'm Dennis Hett. You've heard my sweetheart Audrey talk about Andy. I met Andy a little bit under 10 years ago in Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a place where we hone our communication skills, where we learn how to be better communicators. And Andy didn't seem to need to learn a whole lot. He had a lot to teach us. And one of the most vivid lessons I received from him was how to structure a speech. And one of the ways he said you could structure a speech was as a flower. Each point of the speech is a petal. I'm going to try that tonight. And that's the first point, the way you can structure a speech. I'm going to touch on that. In Toastmasters, he told us many wonderful things about how to speak, how to raise our voice and how to lower it, things like that. And he would give us vivid examples. That's the first petal of the flower. The second petal is what he talked about. It was almost always about family. He was always practicing for some sort of family event. He was practicing a toast for Marley's wedding. He was practicing a toast for his father-in-law that was wonderfully touching. And at one point, he brought forth a treasure box, a wonderful box that you would keep jewelry in, and he pulled treasures out of it. And the first treasure he pulled out of it was the little spring from a ballpoint pen, in which he told a story about Joey and his nose and the spring. It was a contest speech, folks, and it won the contest. That's the second petal of just a few I'm going to raise up. The third one has to do with his way with words. He was always coming up with some wonderful turns of phrases for what was going on. The first one, I'll echo what was just said, was that he said Toastmasters is a functional family. In a functional family, everybody gets to talk, and everyone did there. And and he had wonderful things to say. When Audrey and I got together, he said, "Oh, wow, it curls my toes to think of you." And when we would get going, as we were bonding more as a couple, and we would get going and the sparks would start flying, he would say, "You two guys ought to be married." Things like that. And then they got Winnie the poodle. And Andy had this wonderful way of talking, of saying just awful things in such a sweet way. Winnie would come up to him for some affection, and he would take her head in his hands, and he would say, "I don't like frizzy-faced dogs." But he would say, "I don't like frizzy-faced dogs." And Winnie would just eat it up. It was wonderful. So that was the part of Andy we knew, the encourager, the family man, the guy with the way with words. And it was only as our relationship with him deepened that we began to sense that very deep faith that he has. See, I'm a pastor, and Andy knew that, and he began to talk about what was going on in church with me. And it was there that I sensed his love for the church. He's the kind of elder you want in a church. So that's my impression of Andy. There's my flower for him. And I lay it down here with the others.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Betty Dingman. I also met Andy at a Toastmasters Club in 2002. It's a day that I will cherish because he, in that instant, became one of my best friends. I got to know Sharon a little bit later after that, and then their lovely family and grandchildren. I have thoroughly enjoyed having them be a significant part of my life. Privileged to speak about Andy this evening. When I think of Andy, there are certain qualities and characteristics that come to my mind. I'm going to use the acronym FRIEND, F-R-I-E-N-D. It's a word you should all know. If you know Andy, you know that word. I want to share these with you along with a lesson or a thought that I've had based on that characteristic of him. F, fun. Andy taught all of us to look for the humor in every situation. It didn't matter the situation. Enjoy life to the fullest and use a pun early and often. R, real. Be yourself, your real self. Being genuine opens the door for you to be able to speak into the lives of others. That genuineness of soul in Andy made it possible for me, and I'm sure for many of you, to hear what he had to say when he spoke into your life. I, invest. The greatest return on investment comes when you invest your time, your talents, and yourself in your relationships. All of you are evidence of that return on investment that Andy had in his life. E, energy. Bring positive energy into all situations. Be an encouragement to those around you. There was never a time that I walked away from spending time with Andy that I wasn't encouraged, that I wasn't built up, that I didn't feel better about what was facing me in my life. He always brought positive energy into our relationship. N, nice. Be nice to everyone. Let gentleness, kindness, and patience be the hallmarks of your life. Indeed, they were hallmarks of Andy's life. And D, devotion. A life devoted to his Savior Jesus, to his spouse, Sharon, to his children, Joe, Nicole, Ricky, Marlena, and to all the lovely grandchildren. To have devotion to all of them and yet be able to have devotion to your friends, all of that speaks of a life well lived. Andy, I miss you. I will always treasure the friendship we shared I am a better person for having known you. Thank you.